Here's the rear planet assembly. On the four-wheel drive models, they don't have a reluctor ring gear, which is this here, for the output speed sensor to read. So it just presses on. So what I'm going to do, just to make it easier for myself, is I'm going to put this in the freezer and cool it off so it'll contract. Then I'm going to heat this up so it'll expand, and it should just slide on. That way I don't have to put it in a press and risk breaking it. Now it's time to assemble this rear planet assembly, and the cheapest and easiest thing to use is petroleum jelly to lubricate all of your lip seal areas, hold washers in place, bearings, stuff like that. Once the transmission warms up, that stuff dissolves. Never had a problem with it. These three tabs face downwards on here. Just squeeze that in there like that. Got our brand new two-wheel drive output shaft. This snap ring goes under the center support. It's flat on both sides, so it doesn't matter which way it faces. Alright, the next part we got to assemble is the center support. I did replace this one because the old one had excessive wear here. So I've already pressed in this new seal here for the rear cooler line fitting. I just used a 10mm deep socket, tapped it in. So now we got to assemble the lip seals onto this piston. Goes in like that. The lip seals, the lips always point towards the direction the fluid comes from pushing the piston. So if we flip it upside down, we want those lips pointing up. Kind of hard to tell in the video, but it goes on like this. Just stretch it out. Put it in that groove. Make sure it goes in all the way. So this one, the piston's upside down, so we want the lip pointing up towards us. Kind of the sharp feeling point on the seal. This one presses into a groove in here. Make sure that one's in all the way. So we got that ready. So now we'll just take some Vaseline, get it on your fingers, lube up the area that the piston and the lip seals are going to go in, because you don't want to assemble that dry or you'll tear the seals. I've been using this stuff for assembly lube for years. It dissolves once the transmission warms up right into the fluid. Never caused an issue. Cheap and easy to get. So now you're just going to take this, drop it into position. Then I just take a feeler gauge I've got bent. You got to be really careful doing this, because if you get crazy you can cut those seals and then the transmission won't work right. But you just kind of work them gently around, putting a little bit of pressure on that piston. We have the retainer goes on. That's got to be pressed down and then that snap ring put on. There's one more part got to go down in here. This brass washer. Put a little Vaseline on the back side of it, drop it down into place. Smush it down in there like that, that way it won't fall back out. Now the center support has to be clocked in the correct position. That seal that I showed you, that rear line cooler fitting comes in right here, so that has to line up with that. Plus there's that bolt that comes in from the valve body, so got to make sure that stuff's lined up right. Just turn that shaft and it'll drop down into place. Before we go any further, we want to make sure that this 3/8 12-point head bolt lines up properly with the center support. So we're going to go ahead and temporarily screw that in before we put our snap ring in. We're not going to tighten it all the way up just yet. And we got our tapered snap ring. The flat side faces down. This can be easy, or sometimes it can be a real pain in the butt. We'll see how this one goes. I kind of take a flat screwdriver like this I have bent, twist it around, make sure it presses all the way into place. Next up, intermediate clutches. Start off with a wave ring. You can kind of tell, but it's wavy. That's supposed to cushion second gear. So you put a steel against that. Clutch, steel, and so on, until you end up with the pressure plate. Now there's plenty of debate on if you should soak your clutches or not. I worked at a transmission shop. They never soaked a single clutch, never had an issue with it. You be the judge. You end up with this here pressure plate. It's a real thick one. Drops down there. You got a snap ring on top of that. Now we're going to assemble this direct drum. Got a brand new molded piston to go in it. And this one has one lip seal that goes inside the drum. The lip actually faces up on this one. It's kind of unique. You just got to remember that that's the way it goes. Just going to stretch it out into that groove till it pops in place. Make sure it feels about the same all the way around. I'll lube up where that piston's going to go. Now on the molded piston, we're going to lube up this part right here, because that's where that lip seal on the inside of the drum is going to ride. And these are always real fun to put in. Finally. Sometimes those can be a real pain in the butt. You just got to keep working it, you know, and try to get it in straight without cutting those seals. But the good thing is we can pressure test those once it's all together. We're going to start off with this wave ring. And it gets a steel against that. And we end up with this pressure plate. It only can go in one way. Then a flat snap ring. There it is. We'll take a little Vaseline and put on these sealing rings just to lubricate them. Makes it easier for that drum to slide in. want to make sure this is seated all the way. So easy way to tell is lift it up a little. If it drops down and you hear that metal thud sound, and that means it's down all the way. Now it's time to install this inner molded piston. So I'm going to freeze this and then heat this up just to make it easier to put on without damaging it. Now you just want to check, make sure it's seated all the way. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that it's all the way down against the drum, all the way around. Now we can put the rest of the forward drum together. So this is going to be an upgraded part. This is a forged steel forward clutch hub made by TCI. So we'll start off with brass washer goes in here. Put a little Vaseline on it, stuff it down in there. Doesn't matter which way it faces. We'll go ahead and stick the other one on top. Then we start off with a wave. This is an aftermarket input shaft made by ATI. So now we have to put the Teflon sealing rings on it, and I have these special tools here to do it. Basically, you stretch these Teflon rings out bigger than they need to be, slide them onto the shaft, and then you have to size them back down with these collars. I like to heat these up so they stretch a lot easier without breaking. This center support bolt gets torqued to 29 foot-pounds. We're going to do a couple air checks here. Now these next two, I can't put a rubber tip up in there, so you will hear some air leaking, but you should still be able to hear clutches apply. Next part we're going to have going in is the forward drum. And we do have a brass washer here that's going to ride against this drum. Just kind of walk it back and forth till it grabs all those clutch teeth, drops into place. When you hear a good solid metal sound like that when you lift it and drop it, it's all the way seated. Lip seals on these face toward the supply hole, so if you push your finger this way you can feel the lip, but if this way it just rolls it back down flat. And then this one here is going to be on the upper side of this supply hole, so it's going to point towards the hole where you feel the lip this way but not this way. If you're really careful, you can walk that feeler gauge around there and actually get these to go together. Just got to be really careful you don't cut anything. It can be done without any specialty tools. You just have to be really careful. You can take the old low reverse band, since hopefully you've replaced this with a new one. So you can take this old one that you're about to throw away, sit this upside down like that on it, so that these two pistons don't fall back apart. Throw this spring on here. You got to be careful about doing this. It's kind of difficult to do, but you can put this back together by hand. Just keep walking it around, pushing that snap ring in. Doesn't hurt to make sure that you push on it, push it in, make sure it's in all the way. There you are. We can go ahead and put this in. You just remember you have to orientate this bolt hole, which is the supply feed for the piston, straight at the bottom here, because that T40 bolt goes through the valve body into that. I've gone ahead and assembled these overdrive clutches temporarily just to do a pressure check. You do that through that 40 Torx bolt, and I don't have it all the way tight, so you probably hear a little bit of a bleed off from that. Looks pretty good. This one here, you can carefully push down and twist on it gently as you're pushing it in, and it will go in on its own. Make sure your bearing's still down in here and everything seems good. This is a one-way sprag, and yes, that noise is normal. It only turns one direction. You want to make sure that's seated all the way, so you want to lift it a little bit, and you hear a good metal thump. Got the input shaft installed. This aftermarket input shaft has to be hammered into place to get the snap ring on. The factory one just kind of free floats in there and the snap ring goes on pretty easily. So we've got all the sealing rings put on it, everything's ready to go, so it's ready to drop in. Put a bearing in here. Right on this steel, there's a notch here. It goes right next to this pin. That's called staking the pump bushing. That prevents the bushing from spinning inside the pump and then walking out and cutting the front seal out. Now you have to align these two pump halves. I've just got two really big hose clamps that I have screwed together, and I use this for quite a lot of different models. You also want to do this without the pump O-ring on it. And you want to look down through the pump bolt holes, make sure they're all centered up, because it can clock a little bit. These get torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. These pump bolts get torqued to 18 foot-pounds. We got our lockup O-ring for the torque converter to seal on. This bolt here is for the overdrive housing. It gets torqued to 12 foot-pounds. Just tap that in with a 13mm socket. Put a little bit of oil on that shaft just to lubricate that seal. Believe it or not, the only thing that actually holds this thing in place is this little nail. It's got little teeth on it there that bite into the case. I mean, I guess it works. not putting a check ball here because this is getting a shift kit and it deletes that check ball. Before I put the valve body on, I am going to air check the low reverse band, and you can do that right here. And that's good. Remember, this rear cooler line fitting goes into that center support, and there's a rubber seal, so you want to lubricate this.